Good morning. The Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing convenes this public hearing. Public hearing notice were given to the media on September 3rd and on Monday, September 23rd. And for the record, today is Tuesday, September 24th, and the time now is 9:01. The committee will hear and accept testimony on the referral of appointment of Ryan Marcel Johnson, position member as an attorney for the Guam Real Estate Commission. The term is 4 years from the date of confirmation. We'll also hear Bill 127-35 COR, introduced by Senator Kelly Mars Taitano and co-sponsored by Jose Pito Terlay, an act to add new Section 1038 to Chapter 10, Title 1, Guam Code annotated, relative to officially establish an annual Peace Officers Memorial Day for Guam. Also, Bill 150-35 COR, introduced by Senator Kelly Mars Taitano, co-sponsored by Senator Sabina Flores Perez, Speaker Tina Rose Munoz Barnes, Senator Clint Rigel, Senator Therese Terlay, and Senator Jose Pito Terlay. An act to amend Section 2104 of Chapter 2, Title 5, Guam Code annotated, relative to expanding the scope of Island Beautification Task Force. We had a bill, also Bill 16-35 COR, but that was withdrawn by the author, Senator Moylan. Joining me for this public hearing is Senator Kelly Mars Taitano. General rules for public hearing. The conduct of this public hearing shall be as follows. Those testifying will be recognized in the order of sign up on the sign-in sheet. Written testimony may be read. Lengthy written testimony should be summarized to be about 5 minutes. Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide our designated staff with written testimony for photocopying. Testimony shall be confined to the substance. Persons will be allowed to present oral testimony only once. Once you are done, you may be asked to remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony as may be desired by members of the panel. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony and or may be asked to leave or be escorted and removed from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. Please state your name. We will now begin to hear testimony in the appointment of Mr. Ryan Marcel Johnson. And we'll begin with not Mr. Johnson, who signed up first, but we'll start with Mr. Walsh. Sir, Joshua Walsh, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Senator Mars Taitano, and your committee. My name is Joshua Walsh. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing for about 10 years here on Guam, and I am grateful for the opportunity to speak on the nomination of Mr. Ryan M. Johnson for service on the Real Estate Commission. I've known him as Mars because of that middle name, so I hope you forgive me if I just call him Mars during this. I first met Mars in 2005, though both of us were sons of Guam. We first met in law school in 2005. And it is in that formation of the practice of law at the University of Hawaii, where we both went, that I think I'm here to offer a few words about Mr. Johnson. Formation of the law at the University of Hawaii School of Law is a very interesting thing. There are lots of issues about environmental protection, property rights issues, issues related to the cost of living, utilities, issues related to the protection of indigenous peoples that we sort of really picked up at the University of Hawaii. And I think all of that is absolutely relevant to working as an attorney on Guam. Law school, of course, is an intense world. Mars quickly established himself as a friend of all of us in that law school. Our class was remarkably diverse, and I'm not just talking about ethnic background or racial background. Our class also included students who struggled academically to make grades, and also included some of the most brilliant legal minds I have ever come across, including a classmate of ours who clerked at the United States Supreme Court. Mars was so well suited to our diverse class and our diverse school community that by his third year, Mars was our student association president. He held that role not because of bombast. He got that role not because of some sort of showy leadership. Mars, Mr. Johnson here, who stands before you for this nomination, is quiet. He demonstrated steadfast fellowship, a commitment that went beyond some sort of ethical or moral guidebook. Those of us who know Mars like Mars, not because he follows some book about what it means to be ethical, but because he is a good man. And I think in this day and age, that is an important qualification. Mars is an absolutely good guy. After law school, Mars worked in Honolulu. He had a varied practice. I know he had to deal with various detail-oriented issues related to insurance practice, issues of property review, lots of commitment for lots of work in Honolulu. But thankfully, Mars found his way home. Since returning to Guam and working at one of our premier Guam law firms, I know this without giving away too many confidences, I know that Mr. Johnson has had to work on some of the most complex issues that affect our island and our region. And that is not hyperbole. His firm deals with some very, very complex issues, and Mars is in the center of a lot of those. While Mr. Johnson today is a little bit grayer and a little bit whiter than I remember him in law school, he has never wavered from being the steadfast, ethical man that those of us in law school came to know. Mars will be an absolute asset to this commission. He understands details. He is a team-oriented person. He is a proud son of Guam who carries some of the rarest gifts of knowing how leadership works. He leads from the front when necessary and brings a quiet and supportive world of assistance when that is called for. He walks that line very well, and I think it will serve this commission well. And if I could give one final point, Mars's great personal skills that I've talked about, I think, are due in no small part to his unique background. He is the son of a Caucasian father who came to Micronesia and a mother from Palau. He is, like many of us, including myself on Guam, one of these proud Guamanians who is also very proud of our Micronesian heritage. I think that putting somebody like Mr. Johnson with this biracial identity on this commission provides the governor and this legislative branch an opportunity to confirm further integration and incorporation of this community into the island of Guam. I don't want to overstate that, but I think it is important to say. I think that if this committee sees fit to recommend his confirmation, that this will help move the ball just one step further as that community continues its journey in this Guam island home. So unless the committee has any questions for me, I'll leave it with that and say thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. I'd like to also recognize my colleagues that have joined me. We have, to my far left would be Senator Pito Terlai, Jose Pito Terlai. And then to my immediate right, we have Senator Jim Moylan. And to his right would be Senator Regine Besculi. And I will ask you, Mr. Johnson, to please make your presentation.
Good morning, Chairman San Agustin, Senator Taitono, Senator Talahi, Senator Moylan, and Senator Biscoli. I'm really humbled by Mr. Walsh's comments. It was a lot more than I expected anybody to say. Really, I was just called by the Lieutenant Governor a few weeks ago and asked to serve on this board, and really the only reason I agreed to is because I feel it's important to help serve the people of Guam when you're asked to, and you're called upon to do that. I have experience with real estate work in Guam. What I don't have experience with, I can certainly use the experience that I have as an attorney to fill in those gaps. Really, I think this would be a good opportunity to help out with this commission, and I look forward to helping with it and serving my island. If you have any questions for me, I'm welcome to answer any that you may have.
No, thank you, sir. I'm looking at your resume. Outstanding. Senator Marsh, Senator Titan, would you have any question? Mr. Johnson.
Ali and Mananasi Tu'us, Unil Tuthal. So it's very good to hear from both of you, Seduus Maasi, for coming out here and taking the time to testify. Not only that, but to Mr. Johnson for accepting this nomination. And as the chairman has mentioned, going through your resume, it's quite impressive. You've had a good education, partly as outlined by Mr. Walsh. Part of what's really, I think, very good to hear about going to law school at the University of Hawaii is it's a similar environment. They deal with similar issues, and it sounds like they really make it part of the program that they offer. And so it just helps further provide you with that experience where you have that fuller contextual understanding of the issues that can come up on our island. And so I think that speaks very well for you.
Thank you.
And as I was going through your resume, I noticed that you've had quite a bit of professional involvement. Again, I think that speaks very highly of the type of commitment that you'll have towards a commission like this. One of the issues that you may have heard over the years is that sometimes it's hard to get quorum. And so it's very important to us to be looking at and really considering people who understand what those kind of commitments are and have the ability or have demonstrated that they have the ability to see that through. So in that vein, before I continue, do you see yourself as being able to commit the time towards this commission and help make quorum each time that they need it?
Yes, absolutely. I know what it's like to be in charge of a board. I was the president of the Student Bar Association in the University of Hawaii. I was a chair of the CLE committee before the Guam Bar Association. So I know that the frustration, the difficulty when you don't have quorum in order to make any decisions, and especially with the limited amount of time that this board meets. Generally, and I know from looking at the few of the last board minutes that there was an interest in them meeting more often. I understand the importance of making sure that people show up for those meetings because you can't get things done unless you have quorum at those meetings. So I will definitely make it a priority and I'll make sure to show up at those meetings when they do occur.
That's very reassuring to hear. And it's also speaks volumes to us that you've already started looking at some of the minutes to familiarize yourself with the commission. And I note in your professional involvement, one of the things that really stands out is that you've been part of the Professional Ethics and Unauthorized Practice of Law Committee adjudicative panel member since earlier this year. Yeah. Yes, but that is the sort of involvement that really lends towards helping us understand the value that others have put in you and the faith and trust that they've put in you and your ethics and the standard of work that you do. Can you explain to me what the CLE is that you were committee chair of?
I was put in charge of the CLE committee, which is the Continuing Legal Education Committee for the Guam Bar Association. I believe it was back in 2005 or 2015 or 2016. Basically, it's the committee that helps approve and plan continuing education classes for lawyers on Guam. There's a requirement that all lawyers at least do 10 hours of continuing education, 2 of which must be in ethics. And so I was given the opportunity to select people who I would trust to be on the committee. Mr. Walsh was one of them. I thought we had a pretty good time on the committee. We were able to approve, we put together a few classes. Somebody jokingly thought about putting together a CLE conference in Asia somewhere. And so I thought it'd be kind of a funny thing to actually go through with. So if you'll see it there, we put together the Business Law and International Practice Conference in Manila in 2016. We managed to get a lot of really good speakers. We got the former dean of Ateneo Law School to speak. We got 2 associate justices from the Philippine Supreme Court to speak, or the Philippine Court of Appeals to speak. I think the chairwoman from Philippine National Bank was there too. So we got a very interesting array of speakers to show up and talk there too. So I just like the opportunity to actually make things happen. And especially to see something like that come to fruition, because it was stressful trying to organize something from here in the Philippines as well. But that's essentially what we did. We also would approve any continuing education credits that people took off island and measured whether or not it fit with the rules that we had and whether they would qualify for continuing education for the Guam Bar Association.
Sujus Masi for providing, or Sulang, for providing additional information. Having participated in small ways in the organizing of a conference, I understand what a large undertaking that is, and especially as an international event, really. So again, that speaks well of you. And then in looking at your community and civic involvement, there's quite a bit that you've participated in over the many years. And one of them, again, stood out to me. So we've met each other from time to time at different functions, but I did not realize that you're from Merard. And I have lived in Palau for 4 years, and Gerard is a state that I know very well. There are also other people on Guam who hail from that state, and so there's that additional connection. And I believe, if I have my states correct, because it's kind of on the border, but it's also where the Palauan Fountain of Youth is. Yeah. So if you haven't gone to that site, highly recommend. I've been there once, and maybe I'll go there again. But again, this level of community involvement, it really speaks to your commitment, the breadth of your interests and what you do commit yourself to. And so all of those things, I think, bring a lot to the table. So you spoke of having some understanding and some involvement of the real estate on Guam. Is there any particular issue or focus that you're thinking of as you're entering into this, potentially entering into this commission, especially after going through some of the minutes?
I think one thing that I would probably like to focus on, if I could, as a member of this board, is transparency. One thing I noticed looking online is I couldn't really find a copy of the commission's rules or the real estate rules on Guam, either at the compiler's website or on the Rev and Tax website. I also was only able to find 3 sets of minutes from the last 2 years, so I'd be interested in making sure more of that's available online for the general public to have a better idea of what the commission's doing. Would be the first thing off the bat that I would be interested in doing.
That sounds very good. I think everybody in the government always likes to hear about increased transparency. So Suzuis Maasi and Sulang, to both of you for being here and for providing both comment and answers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Pito?
Good morning, Marcel. Thank you very much for taking the challenge. And I was going through your professional career records. I think it speaks for itself, and I want to thank the governor, lieutenant governor, for making that right choice. And I fully support your confirmation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Moylan, do you have anything you want to?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Johnson, congratulations on your nomination. Looking forward to seeing your name on our session pretty soon so we can get you sworn in. But also, I'd like to offer that as you go through your duties as the Real Estate Commission, that if you do find within the law that there are some things that could be updated, please bring it to our attention. And as an attorney, I think you can be very helpful for us for updating things and moving things along to better the island. So I appreciate it. So congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you. I certainly will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. I'd like to also recognize that we've joined also by Senator Clint Rizal. Senator Lee, do you have any questions for the nominee?
Suzuis Maasi, Mr. Chair, and good morning, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your testimony. And Mars, I want to first start by thanking the Magahaga and our Lieutenant Governor for selecting you for this position. I think it's, reviewing your packet and knowing you personally, I think it's a really good fit. I know that you had mentioned prior, or actually in your packet, that you have no business interest, but I just wanted, this is a question that I asked all people who come up for confirmation for boards and commissions. If you encounter a conflict of interest, how would you handle that?
As a lawyer, we do have to deal with conflict of interest regularly. I know at my firm every Monday we deal with new cases and go over whether or not they would pose a conflict. So, I mean, I basically use a lot of the same rules that we follow as lawyers through the rules of professional responsibility. And, if of course a conflict of interest arose, I'd recuse myself from any decision that had anything to do with that.
Suzuis Maasi. Senator Marsh had mentioned issues that we've had in the past with other boards and commissions regarding quorum. And I know that you're an active member of our community and a number of different organizations, so I trust your response to her and your response to the committee that you'll be able to just take your role on the Guam Real Estate Commission very seriously and, prepare in advance of the meetings and help us to ensure that we make quorum.
Absolutely.
You also mentioned previously that you took the time to review some of the board minutes. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity to discuss and communicate to the committee what you think are the top challenges that the Guam Real Estate Commission faces, and what your experience and expertise, you can bring to the table to help us to try to address some of these challenges.
Okay. I think looking at some of the meetings, it looked like probably quorum was an issue they may have been having, which is why maybe there was only one meeting so far this year. But one of the things they raised was the importance of having more meetings in order to deal with things more regularly and be more responsive to what's happening in the community. Guam is interesting, the fact that there are a large number of real estate agents, especially per capita. So I think it's important, especially for this committee, to meet more often. And I think I would be in favor of that committee doing that in order to make sure that it can help deal with this business. Because it's something that everybody especially deals with. Most people, pretty much everybody deals with a real estate agent when they're buying a home, which is probably the most expensive thing that anybody really, purchases as a consumer. So, I mean, the main thing my experience, I am a lawyer, but I do have a lot of experience on various boards in order to making sure that that people show up to meetings, that meetings run smoothly, and that that we make sure to go over every single thing that we need to. I also have a very broad experience when it comes to administrative law. That's one of the first things that I was working on in Hawaii, mostly with workers' compensation. On Guam, I deal with a lot of procurement law. I like administrative law because it moves quickly, but it's also a field that a lot of people don't really have a lot of experience in, because it's a little different from the law that's practiced in courts. But I have a great deal of experience from there to draw from when dealing with, especially potentially complaints with people, or to deal with rule and rulemaking process that administrative bodies have to go through as well. Which is why I brought up the fact that I couldn't find any rules for the commission or real estate on Guam in general. That's something that I'd be really interested in seeing, to see if there's, of course, any changes that could be made to update them. Because especially after 2008, the real estate market has changed a whole lot, especially the way people practice in real estate has had to change a whole lot. So it's important that we make sure that they're up to date, and that everybody has an understanding of what rules everybody's playing on, so everybody can play in a level playing field.
Thank you very much. I appreciate, your response in terms of attempting to make the commission more responsive, holding more regular meetings, but also, you brought up the idea of consumer protection, and it is the biggest investment that many people make in their lifetime. So it's important that we, I think, communicate also to the community a little bit better about the risks and the challenges involved in real estate transactions, and just help them to be better informed about the choices that they're making. But again, I just really want to thank you for accepting the governor's nomination, for donating your time to the people of Guam in this role, hopefully, should you be confirmed. You certainly have my support, and I also want to thank Attorney Walsh for coming in, for lending his voice to these proceedings. Suzus Masi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Senator Rangel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions. I just want to congratulate you for your appointment and say that you have my full support. Also, you come highly recommended by Mr. Joshua Walsh, and I respect and very highly value Mr. Walsh's opinions. So congratulations on your nomination, and you have my support.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson. Number one, I'm like everyone have expressed, that we thank you for accepting the nomination.
Thank you.
And there's 6 of us up here, and we're all in support of you, so we'll just find the other 2 to make sure you get confirmed on our session, so we can get you to work. And I like the statement when you mentioned about transparency. I know for a fact that the Real Estate Commission will be working closely with DRT, Revenue and Tax, to make sure that the laws that apply to real estate is updated.
Yep.
Because I know when I was the oversight of Revenue and Tax, there were some issues that need to be addressed. But, the slow boat to China actually went into effect, and then nothing happened. So I'm hoping that on the Real Estate Commission, you'll be able to address those, so that, like you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of things that have changed, but we got to get the laws to be moving with that change, not just staying behind and having laws that govern the real estate, and you find out that your hands are tied. And I would be expecting that from you. Unless you have anything else to say, this would complete your the hearing on your nomination, your appointment.
I don't have anything else to say. Thank you very much for your time, Senators.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. The committee will continue to receive testimony for the next few days. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriation, and Housing, and submit it via email to Senator Joe S. Agustin at gmail.com. So, Justice Masi for attendance and participation in today's hearing. And for those at home, thank you for watching the public hearing for the appointment of Mr. Johnson is now adjourned at 9:26. Thank you, sir. Now we will proceed on to the Bill 127-35, COR. I'd ask could I get the sign-in sheet so we identify who's testifying on behalf of that? Of Senator Marsh Title's bill to establish the annual Peace Officers Memorial Day. Pete, do we have the sign-in sheet? Who? Just you? Sir, go ahead and come forward. And before we begin, I'll ask Senator Marsh Title to please make the opening presentation on her bill, Bill 127. Mike, you want to come on up? Also, you going to speak also, Mike? No, you're just here to support, right? DOC, GPD should have been here, but that's okay. Senator Marsh Title.
They're out there protecting and serving, so, and which I am very grateful for. Hafaday Zen Mananasi Zu'us. I would like to thank those in attendance and those tuning in to our channel, excuse me, in order to listen in or participate in this hearing for Bill 127. The bill aims to officially make Peace Officers Memorial Day on May 15th a permanent day of commemoration by codifying into law. I am very proud of my connections, excuse me, to peace officers. My brother-in-law, Kin Regis, was a colonel at the height of his 34-year-long career in our island police force, having graduated from the 14th Police Academy cycle. Police Chief Stephen Ignacio, I found out the other month while we were having a conversation, was actually a student of my stepmother down at Inarahan Junior High back in the day. And then over the years, I've had students that have gone on to serve as peace officers of one type or another. So in 1962, President Kennedy signed Public Law 87-726, which authorized the president to proclaim May 15th of each year as Peace Officers Memorial Day to honor all peace officers throughout the nation who were killed or disabled in the line of duty. Likewise, on Guam, our governor issues a proclamation every year declaring the same. However, this is really a tradition and not formally set in law, which, given that peace officers serve and protect the people of Guam each day with relentless valor and devotion, I find it most befitting to honor those who selflessly serve, oftentimes in very difficult and very dangerous situations, literally putting their lives on the line, by commemorating them formally in law and not just tradition. To clarify, the bill as proposed is administrative in nature and would not require holiday pay or otherwise impact governmental appropriations. In fact, from the Bureau of Budget and Management Research, we have a fiscal note saying that there is no fiscal impact to the appropriations. So my office is expecting further written testimony from law enforcement agencies which have lost peace officers in the line of duty and are not able to attend today, and this will be added to our public hearing record. So, Seduos Masi, again, to those of you who were able to come today, I realize it's a working day and so forth, but we definitely appreciate your time.
Sir, your testimony.
Senators, good morning. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. Senator Marsh, thank you for that personal invitation for today. Good morning again. My name is Joey Terlahi, and I am the Deputy Director of the Department of Corrections. Back in 2016, excuse me, I attended a very prestigious training with the United States Secret Service in Washington, D.C. While in Washington, D.C., I was able to visit historical places like the Lincoln Memorial, Vietnam Memorial, Korean Memorial, and the White House. The one visit that I felt attached to was the Law Enforcement Memorial Wall. This was an experience that I will never forget. Throughout my 24 years in law enforcement, I've heard about the Law Enforcement Memorial Wall, and to my students, well, I heard of the Law Enforcement Memorial and I've done my own research. And I actually talked about the Law Enforcement Memorial Wall to my police officer students, my cadets, when I taught officer survival. Since that time, I could only wonder and imagine what this beautiful place would look like. I would mention to my officer survival courses the importance and the significance of continuing to memorialize our fallen brothers and sisters who made that ultimate sacrifice to ensure that we are all safe and secure on our island. On the Law Enforcement Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C., there are about 25,000 names of law enforcement officers from our nation who were killed in the line of duty. Of the 25,000 names placed on the wall, 17 officers are from Guam. I took the time to find and pay tribute to each and every one of them, my fellow Guamanians. As I prayed beside each and every one of them, an overwhelming feeling came over me as we need to continue to honor, respect, and treasure these amazing heroes. By passing this law to make Peace Officers Memorial Day on May 15, we are aligning ourselves nationally to continue to pay tribute to the husband, wives, parents, children, siblings, and friends of our fallen brothers and sisters. We will continue to unite as a community and remember our law enforcement officers who gave that ultimate sacrifice. We will continue to honor and commemorate as the families continue to carry that special burden. And though there are no speeches or ceremony that can ease their pain, this bill will set a date to honor their courage, to fill their hearts with our profound gratitude. With that said, I want to thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Senator Marsh, Taino, do you have any comment or questions you want to pose on Mr. Terlai, the Deputy Director?
I appreciate your testimony very much. It really gets to the heart of the matter. It's so important that we don't just look at things, maybe we do a bit today because we're so inundated with social media and other media that sometimes we start to think of things statistically. But we really need to remember there are brothers and sisters, there are family members that are out there really, as I mentioned, you know, I don't say that lightly, putting themselves in harm's way, facing things that most of us won't have to or don't have to. And so we do definitely appreciate that and get to hear from you, your heartfelt sentiments. And the other part that I really appreciated hearing was about that. Did you say it's a hall or a wall? A wall, okay.
Yes, it's the Law Enforcement Memorial Wall, similar to the Vietnam Wall.
And to your knowledge, you know, I know that if I remember correctly, at the police station, I believe there are photos there, like framed photos of our fallen police officers. But is there any permanent memorial that we have in our landscape that further recognizes them?
Senator, the only ones I'm familiar with is the one that's situated at the Hagåtña precinct, and I believe that's going to be relocated soon to the Sinahanya precinct. We have one up at the Department of Corrections in recognition of Douglas Mashburn.
And So are those a set of framed photographs, or is that a permanent type of memorial marker?
It's not photo, it's a permanent type structure.
That's very good to hear. Part of this bill calls for the governor to have a committee to see how to best commemorate. And so hearing of the wall, hearing of these other structures that are already in place will give the committee information so that they can look and see if that suffices or if there are ways to build on that. But it was very helpful for me to hear about that, and maybe they can also be that link that assures that every time there's something that changes on Guam, that we're in communication with the National Wall as well. But again, thank you so much for your testimony. It was very important to hear how deeply it affects you and how much it means to you and, of course, the others that serve as peace officers.
Senator Terlai, do you have any questions or comments you would like to make?
Not a question, Senator. I just want to kind of elaborate the bill itself, and I want to thank the sponsor of the bill for including me as the co-sponsor for this particular bill. And anytime something like this happens, memorializing the law enforcement officers, especially the 17 law enforcement officers, and it touches me in my heart because, you know, at the time, all these people, the 17 people that really paid the ultimate sacrifice, I was a member of the Guam Police Department. I served the Guam Police Department for 18 years, and all these 17 law enforcement officers that have lost their life during the time, I was also within the Guam Police Department. And I want to thank Joey for coming out, because I've heard he had mentioned to me about the wall over in Washington, D.C., and I just want to say that this bill is actually a long time coming, because I always thought that there is a date that we commemorate. But, you know, as far as the bill, I'm just seeing this, that I don't think there's no bill that mentioned something about the memorializing of this 17 people. And I just want to thank Senator Mars for putting this out. And like I said, this is I take this bill as being close to my heart, because it's a long time coming, and actually from this day forward, and I know that Senator San Agustin is here, and we're talking about permanentizing the names of these people. And I want to ask the budget chairman to make sure that we have the budget to really put out those whatever that we need to do up in Sinahanya. So I'm pretty sure that Mr. San Agustin or Senator San Agustin will find the funding to actually beautify this type of memorizing those that paid the ultimate sacrifice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Terlai. And what cycle did you graduate from?
It's been a long time, Senator. I'm sorry to say, but I think the 11th cycle.
Okay, then I'm not that far away. Senator Moylan, do you have anything you would like to comment? Nothing? Senator Rizal? Nothing. Okay, then it leaves up to me. Okay, great. You're on the 11th, and Colonel Reyes was on the 14th, and I was on the 19th. So we're in sync. And I'd ask that Senator Kelly would include me also as a co-sponsor, because being a former police officer, I am also surprised that we don't have that listed as a Memorial Day. I think with the years in the police department, and for the many years, the Guam Police Department has always thought it did, and only because we were following the national. And it's great that we're going to have it now in our books, that we will have a day. Well, they say a day in court. We'll have our day for all law enforcement. And yes, I would support that a wall would go up, and maybe not necessarily at Sinahanya, but at wherever it needs to go up, put it up. Not make the excuse why we don't have a wall. We have all the different memorial sites here. there is no reason, or I can't come up with any excuse why we can't have our own law enforcement memorial wall. And then maybe call it the Pacific Law Enforcement Memorial Wall, because you find it in the States, it's a law enforcement memorial wall and includes us. And there's no, and I don't think we're going to have any reservation for anybody on the outer islands to be included, which is, you know, we have Palau and all the other islands and Saipan. And I think that'll be a great place to have it, because everybody does come to Guam. Is there anything else you'd like to bring up, Mr. Terlai?
Nothing else, sir. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. This concludes this hearing on Bill 127-35. The committee will continue to receive testimony for the next few days. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriations, and Housing. Submitted via email to Senator Joe S. San Agustin at gmail.com. Jesus Masi for attendance and participation in today's hearing. And for those at home, thank you for watching. The public hearing for Bill 127-35 is now adjourned. It is now 9:42. We will now proceed to Bill 150, also introduced by Senator Kelly Marsh Taitno and my colleagues. We have Senator Sabina Flores Perez, Senator Speaker Tina Munoz Barnes, Senator Rigel, Senator Terlai, Senator Peter Terlai. Ma'am, would you like to make an opening? Thank you, ma'am.
Saina Ma'asi, Mr. Chair. So again, I would like to thank those that are here today and who are tuning into our channel for this hearing on Bill 150. This bill aims to expand the scope and function and membership of the Island Beautification Task Force. This legislation strengthens the existing Island Beautification Task Force. One of the bill's main functions is to bring together agency stakeholders to create long-term plans on preventing the illegal disposal of waste at unauthorized sites and preventing the destruction of public facilities, including those at parks and beaches. Bill 150 gives an overarching government-wide responsibility to the Island Beautification Task Force so that there is a permanent, empowered body that will continuously be working toward resolving these issues that affect the beauty, appreciation, and enjoyment of our island. This legislation further provides for adding a representative from the Guam Environmental Protection Agency, as well as the Mayor's Council of Guam, to the task force to improve the coordination of beautification and cleanup efforts, really, across relevant agencies and on the village level. With this broader representation and responsibility, the task force can implement numerous types of programs to provide for a more effective island beautification policy, including to especially focus on planting native flowers and trees when planting. This would include these additional roles: spreading awareness to encourage a change in behavior through the creation of perhaps a mascot and other innovations, examining whether the size requirement of dumpsters is appropriate given our modern lifestyles, encouraging recycling, and much more. I look forward to the good work that they will do as this bill moves forward. And my office is expecting written testimony regarding the task force in support of this bill from the administration. We're expecting that to be submitted in the coming days, and we'll be adding it to this hearing's record.
Thank you, Senator Taitno. Mr. Lee, you're here representing the EPA in support. I'd like to hear your testimony. Hopefully it doesn't cost your agency a lot of money, but just
well, I
your
just
support.
heard Senator Pito volunteering your service for financing, so maybe we can talk later.
Thank you, sir.
Hafideh, good morning, Senators. I apologize for not having anything written today. Our agency's been part of the dengue response, so but we still felt it necessary to thank Senator Marsh for naming Guam EPA as part of the beautification task force. In my short time of government service, I've found myself working directly or indirectly with the Island-wide Beautification Task Force, and as a staff assistant, assisting the needs of the task force to my current role with EPA. The agency has always provided technical support, supplies, and manpower as needed. This year, we're very encouraged by what we're seeing out of the Lieutenant Governor's office. He's really hit the ground running in terms of the two cleanups, the first one being the Island-wide Beautification Day over the summer, and then just a week or so ago, we did have the Micronesia-wide cleanup, as well as his outreach efforts for planting more trees. We're also encouraged by members of this legislature, especially with our committee chair, with Senator Sabina. She's very active with introducing legislation to strengthen our environmental statutes. We're appreciative of that, and everybody at Guam EPA is encouraged by her momentum. Senator Rangel just over Earth Day decided to pick probably the worst place you could call for volunteers to do a cleanup. I showed up to that. I thought he was crazy, but we're appreciative of those things as well. You know what? We've had, I don't know if you guys remember, there was something called Basta Basula last year, and that was a commitment largely due to the Island-wide Beautification Task Force. It's always encouraging when the community stakeholders and our private businesses interact with us, partner up and offer whatever assistance or support that they can. It goes hand in hand. We always talk about how tourism is the lifeline of Guam's economy, and this will play a role in preserving that. Now, we're also upon this dengue issue, where we're encouraging the public to clean up around their homes and their businesses. We know that illegal dump sites have cumulative impacts, and we've often spoke about vector control, and some of these sites now serve as breeding sites. So I think this is coming at an opportune time to get awareness out. I would like to point out that we have in the past interacted with even GPD on this, because every time you bring up cleaning of illegal dump sites or anybody who is mismanaging their solid waste, you always talk about that enforcement and compliance. And so I would like to also thank them for their support throughout my involvement with IBTF. One of the challenges that we have seen is the manpower. I think one of your colleagues introduced a bill to establish work credit for inmates, and I'm bringing this up because we do get a lot of constituent calls from over at the agency, and then if you look at the response from the government in terms of both personnel and financial resources, it'll add up over time. But we do also have some inmates who may be qualified to start helping out, start doing more. I see it. I know that they're over at the intersection at Tizan going into my office. There was some cleanup activity taking place over there. But I think along with Bill 150, I think we should also consider 148 being complementary to this, because you'll have the supplies, you'll have the food, you'll have the support, but oftentimes, depending on scheduling conflicts or what have you, sometimes the manpower is not there, and I think that it's estimated over $100 a day to care for these inmates, right? But that could be considered an untapped resource that we should be looking at, and it would go great with our ability to further assist the IBTF. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I'm happy you brought up that point. Senator Marsh, do you have something you want to ask Mr. Lee on your bill?
Sedus Maasi, Mr. Lee, for coming in here and for representing the Environmental Protection Agency. And I'm very grateful for the support of being included into the Beautification Task Force and some of the work that we're proposing to have it further do. And you brought up many, many important points. First, I want to also thank private businesses. I've been noticing that some of the private businesses are really pitching in to try to get the community on board. I think most of us are not out there destroying public property and that we're not doing illegal dumping, but for a certain number of us, they are. And so I do want to take the time, as you did, to recognize that private businesses have been really good partners in this, and I really see them stepping up to that. And that's really the way that a community functions best, is if our community is working hand in hand with our agencies, and then we're all taking a role. And maybe just our role is changing some of our behaviors if that need be. Another important issue that you brought up is that really some of what we're seeing right now, and maybe this is something that the Beautification Task Force can really hone in on, is that message that we're dealing with some of these issues like this dengue fever issue is because those illegal dumping sites are breeding grounds, and they're very difficult to clean up quickly to try to get this dengue situation under control. And so maybe with the Beautification Task Force, if they create some awareness campaigns surrounding that, especially at this time, it may make a real impact in helping people understand the chain reaction, that it's not just something unsightly that might be hidden behind some tong somewhere, but that our own children, their own children, might be paying some real prices for it. So I think if we're helping better connect those dots, that will make some impact for those who maybe aren't connecting them on their own right now. And what you mentioned is true. If we're going to be looking at efforts like this, and this would be something that the task force would consider, is that manpower to actually implement the programs and finding funding. I think getting these entities together, we have here, and this leads into my question, we have here the Guam Visitors Bureau, the Department of Public Works, the Department of Parks and Recreation, the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Corrections, now the Guam Environmental Protection Agency, if the bill goes through, and a member of the Mayor's Council of Guam. And so we'll really have really vested stakeholders who can be thinking about programs that will work, how to have the manpower, and where we might find funding through federal programs or other programs, or even with our own government, to make sure that these really necessary things happen. So my question is, given the list of who's on that task force, do you have any other recommendations for members that you think would be important stakeholders to be decision makers?
I don't want to speak for the other agencies and departments, but what I can share with you is that even without EPA being statutorily named as part of the Beautification Task Force, we have stepped up to the call of the task force to provide whatever assistance, and we're really appreciative that you're recognizing us in those efforts. But I think for the most part, all the agencies that are listed there are need to be there. You know, I brought up GPD before. I don't want to overstress any of the public safety agencies at this point, but even without them being named, they've always lent support to us, even the folks from DPW. Now, I know that the Lieutenant Governor is going to make the IBTF evolve, and so we're excited to see the direction that is going to take. And I'm sure that even without formally listing agencies, that there will be a complete Government of Guam support for all of IBTF's endeavors.
Sujuis Masi for that, in addition to your other comments. And I do also want to take the time to recognize the hard work that EPA does. I know that they're really out there trying to do very good things for our community and ensure that we are having an environment that is protected, that it is safe, and is not being polluted or damaged for the health of us all. And maybe it's beyond the scope of this task force, but I keep on saying this over and over because I think it's something that hasn't spread out far enough, and I want to be part of helping share that message. But our environment is not just something that we appreciate and look at and spend time in from time to time, but it really is connected to the health and well-being of our entire community, mind, body, and soul. Our minds are healthier, our bodies are physically healthier, and it really enriches our soul. And those are really, really important tools for fighting against some of our social issues, like our high rates of suicide. So, but I want to thank you for your time today and for EPA's willingness to participate.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Tino. I'd like to also recognize Senator Sabina Perez, who's joined us today. Senator Terlai, do you have any comments?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Senator. Thank you very much for coming here today and sharing your insight regarding, the beautification task force. I just want to mention that the governor's office and, the lieutenant governor did form a task force already within our government, and practically all the agencies are involved in that one. And with that, also my wife is a member of the appointment for the beautification task force. This particular bill kind of just reinforced our efforts in the process. And it not only reinforces our efforts, but also it invigorates to kind of entice all of us to be a part of this process. And I want to just say that this afternoon, my people will be out there and serving refreshment for all those people that are cleaning around the schools and things like that. So the Department of Correction and my office will be going out there to serve refreshment for all the working people out there. And I want to thank EPA for taking the lead role in making sure that this continues to be a part of our everyday task to make sure that we continue to beautify our island. And I want to thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Perez, do you have anything you wanted to comment?
Thank you, Chairman. So yeah, just a comment. Basically, I'm looking over this, and I think that it's important to leverage government resources. First of all, I just want to thank you, Mr. Ripley, for being here at our beck and call, and for just being so involved in trying to troubleshoot a lot of what's going on currently. But I think, having looked at this, I think we definitely need to find a funding source to make this happen and to kind of energize this, revitalize this. And the other thing I think might be needed too is more of a strategic plan. So I know it kind of can focus the energies. I mean, currently, illegal dumping is a big issue, and I think that's very much connected to the prevention of dengue fever outbreak. So having maybe specific strategic goals for the year or a certain period amount of time would be, I think, ideal. But yeah, thank you again for being here and coming.
Senator Moylan, do you have any comments, questions you'd like to pose?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Nick, for your presentation, especially pointing out that we do need a labor force. With Bill 14835, I think that would be very helpful. We need the Indians out there just to clean when we come up with these great ideas, and that should be cheap labor and inmates that are willing to work, and by doing some adjustments to that law, I think that could be helpful. So I'll be working closely with our colleague here, especially Senator Peter Talahi, hopefully getting this public hearing up for that purpose to support Senator Marsh Taitano's bill here. Also, I wanted to ask you, I know EPA has been very involved in cleanups in these private abandoned buildings, especially. There's one particular down in Tumon where I think you folks have been there a couple of times, and as part of the beautification process, maybe that's something we need to also look at to give you folks more teeth in it to maybe, I'm not sure if we need to increase some fines there, or if you have some ideas to help us, because once is enough, I think, when you go down there and that particular abandoned vehicle, and abandoned parking area, across the street from Pali Sambatura's church, right? That's been there for quite some time. And I believe you folks had to go down a second time also. So if there's anything we can do as a legislature to help enforce that, or maybe if we need money to support these types of programs, maybe we just condemn that land, and I think we can bring us a few $1 million to our general fund if the guy doesn't want to clean it up. But if you can give us some ideas, that would be helpful, please.
Okay, I just want to give you guys a quick update on that. So there is a notice of violation that is under review with our legal counsel. That should be, once the review is done, the administrator will more than likely sign off on it, and it will be served to that respondent. So we're going to keep close eyes on that. And I don't want to take up too much of your time, because every time you talk about illegal dumping, we could be here until the sun goes down. And you know, I think the best way to sum it up is that it's, as our committee chair pointed out, that there has to be a strategic plan involved. You know, the agency has always gone on record to say that it's dealing with illegal dumping is systemic in nature. I think a lot of times we get wrapped up in treating the symptoms without actually treating the root cause. But you know, everyone at the agency is encouraged to work with you all on anything that can strengthen enforcement. I know we hear a lot about stiffer fines, but some of these folks that we go after who tend to dump illegally or mismanage their solid waste don't have the ability to pay for that fine. But I'm not suggesting that they get off scot-free, but definitely the people of Guam need justice, and even if it's not in fines, if you're able-bodied, man, get out there and work. I mean, sorry for the editorialization there, but even I think whether it's $100 or 100 hours of community service, you know, I think the community as a whole will benefit from that. So that's what I wanted to add. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Senator Ruggiero, you have nothing. Okay, that leaves it up to me. You know, I have, for Senator Taitano, I'm in support of the bill. I just don't understand why we even have to add the mayor's council and numbers on page 2 when we're working in conjunction with the mayors. But that's okay. I have no objection to that. I just kind of surprised at that one. What I'm just surprised at, and maybe Senator Taitano would agree to it, is that when it comes to page 2 of the bill, line 18, number 6, establishing an education training programs of the same. What I wanted to address was the education portion. One of the things I'm very surprised here in Guam is that we have everything out there on the side of the road talking about everything, but nothing talking about don't litter, don't mess with Guam. And you know, Nick, you've probably seen it before where they have the stickers, don't mess with Guam. But we don't have signs saying that. We can talk about education all we want. I brought this up with the DOE when we want to talk about Chamorro. Well, then put a sign when it says don't run, Munga Malago, right down in the language. If we want to say don't litter, we'll put up a sign saying don't litter on Guam. I mean, it doesn't cost that much, because when you put up the sign, you don't put up the signs that we put up for political reasons. For in our campaign, where it's temporary, put up something that can be changed and you can move with it. It's like when you say don't drink and drive, you put a what's that, a car that got into a fatal accident, and that becomes the picture. Put a picture of the littering issues we got on Guam. And then maybe something that maybe Senator Perez or Senator Taino will consider in the very near future is maybe something that talks about, when we talk about, gosh, I just got thrown off real quick, but we talk about the education, but maybe we talk about a community beautification code. I've seen this in the States because I've lived in the States before. If your grass gets up to 3 feet or 2 feet, you get fined by the county. You know, like you mentioned, what's across the street of the church in Tumon. You're going after a fine after I think in some states, if you're fined the 3rd time, the government automatically takes possession of your property and they auction it. It's sold. The issue of an ugly sight is gone. And maybe that's the role. Maybe we need to, and that will help the education, that if you don't cut your grass, if you don't trim the trees on the side of the road on your property, the government will take a role in it. We can't be calling Docomo, GPA, and saying, hey, can you cut the tree because it may cut the power? No. If it's on your property, if you don't coordinate it to get it cleared up, the government, like when your EPA goes out there and they look at this stuff, it's unsightly. Call the mayor's office. You get out. You need to go out there, not you guys, because that should be their role, and that's the role they've played on many tunes. They are the fronts. They're on the front line to the community. Then show it, because I know for a fact all the mayors come to you to get an open PO sign so they can get paid to move trash out of their villages. You're the money guy when it comes to environmental, but it's going to draw up a spot on the line that where you're not going to keep paying for the same thing, that nobody's really educating anybody and nobody's really going after people to start cleaning it up themselves. And exactly what you brought up, you need more manpower. They got Bill 148 that Senator Moylan brought up. It's about bringing DOC, you brought that up. And there's probably a lot of other folks out there. Maybe even include DYA. Maybe even include what I think the nation is pushing for, is that if you want the Quest increase, public health assistance, and you're an able body, you need to be employed in some form, community service hours. So that's what I wanted to bring up on this bill, and I'm in full support of this bill. I just like to see more teeth. I mean, talk about education, put up a sign saying don't litter. Take a picture of it, put it all over DOE schools. Don't litter. Because on many occasions we see the same trash we see in the schools, we see out there on the side of the road. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of the people in Guam, they're driving down the road, somebody throws out a bag of McDonald's or something. If you own the bag, maybe you should be liable for people not putting it in the proper recycling bins. Maybe that's how we need to educate people. Then people start to understand when you buy it, you become liable for that trash, and you walk away free. Senator Taino, do you have anything else, or does anybody else have anything else to say? Other than that, this will conclude the hearing on Bill 150. The committee will continue to receive testimony for the next few days. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing. Submit it via email to Senator Joe S. Augustine at gmail.com. And Jesus Masi for your attendance, Nick, and participating in today's hearing. And for those at home, thank you for watching. The public hearing for Bill 150-35 CR is now adjourned, and it is now 10:10. And Jesus Masi for your attendance, participating in today's hearing. Good morning. Thank you.